Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for what is basically the ultimate shortcut into the operational mindset of hyperachievement.
Yeah, and this isn't your typical motivational seminar. Not at all.
Not even close. Our sources for this deep dive are intensely detailed, really blunt, and highly tactical notes and transcripts. They're from a tremendously successful modern entrepreneur, someone who is, lived the grind, gone broke, and then scaled organizations to the very highest levels.
That's right. And our mission today is really razor-focused. It's about extraction. We are not talking about motivation.
Right. Motivation is fleeting.
It is. It fails the moment you face any real resistance. What we're doing is identifying and really dissecting the foundational, strategic, and psychological frames that are necessary to enable massive, disproportionate success.
So you should prepare yourself because the tone of these sources is it's unflinching.
Absolutely. We are dealing squarely with the uncomfortable, the non-negotiable truths and trade-offs that are required to be exceptional.
It's the difference between hearing a nice theory and getting the actual operating manual. And it feels like it's written in blood, sweat, and failure.
Oh, it really does.
This material demands you look at yourself differently, and it starts with the most, I think, jarring concept of all. It's one that attacks the most common psychological defense mechanism we all have.
The power of blame.
Exactly.
So, the foundational mindset. It's deceptively simple, but it is, I think, the hardest principle to truly, truly embody.
And what is it?
It's 3 words. It's my fault.
Okay, but let's break that down because that phrase is so loaded. People hear fault and they immediately jump to guilt or shame or that they did something morally wrong.
Precisely. And we need to define what we mean by fault right from the start. We are not talking about moral fault. We're not assigning guilt here.
We're talking purely about agency.
Purely. It's about agency. The
Yeah.
question is, who is in control of the response? That's it.
That distinction is so crucial because when people hear, it's my fault, their mind goes to, wait, I'm not responsible for that systemic injustice. Or, I didn't cause the recession.
Of course. And this isn't about declaring yourself the cause of those big external events. It's about declaring yourself the sole controller of your response to them.
Ah, okay.
The moment you blame an external factor, doesn't matter what it is, politics, the economy, your race, your gender, your childhood trauma, the moment you do that, you are casting power onto that external thing.
You're handing it the keys.
You're handing it the keys. You are literally saying, this external force holds the key to my future, not me.
And that's the strategic error, isn't it? If I say, my finances are stuck because interest rates are too high, well, then the Federal Reserve holds the key to my success. I am powerless until they decide to change the environment.
Right. You can complain, you can organize, you can tweet about it.
But I can't act today to fix my immediate problem. I've put myself in a holding pattern.
And that is the essence of the victim frame or the powerless frame. And what makes it so sticky, so comfortable even, is that it's deceivingly self-fulfilling.
What do you mean by that?
If you choose that powerless frame, you get an immediate short-term confirmation. You get to be right. You get to say, see, I was right. My situation sucks because of this external thing.
And there's a certain satisfaction in that, in being right.
There is. But the source material is so blunt on this. It says you might be 99% right about why the world is unfair, but you are 100% wrong in the long term.
Because by prioritizing being right in the short term, you miss the chance to achieve your long-term goal.
You lose everything. The external problem might be very, very real, but your choice to assign agency to it, that is the internal error that costs you everything.
We have to linger on that psychological trade-off for a second, because that's the core hurdle for so many people. We are trading the temporary ego-preserving comfort of blaming something else.
Yeah.
For the long-term painful discomfort of accepting absolute responsibility for finding the solution.
Absolutely. And think about the classic psychological hurdle, the source details, the challenge of childhood trauma. Someone says, I can't succeed because my mom didn't love me enough.
And that sounds deeply rooted, very unfair, and it probably is.
It likely is. But strategically, look at what that statement does. It means the mom and the memory of the mom controls the present-day outcome. You're surrendering control to an unchangeable past event.
And you're demanding that the past change for you to move forward.
But the past cannot be changed. So if your success requires that unchangeable event to be nullified, what have you done?
You've chosen guaranteed failure.
Exactly. The mindset shift, the real work, is to accept it's my fault that I haven't figured out how to win despite that trauma. It's not about denying the reality of the pain.
No.
It's about claiming the reality of your response to it.
The sources drive home this really fundamental contrast in how people frame their lives. Losers, and they use that word, people who maintain the powerless frame, they talk about what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
They focus on the trauma, the setback, the unfairness. They see life as like a series of obstacles just placed in their way by someone else.
Right, it's a passive experience.
Exactly. But winners, on the other hand, they talk about what they made happen despite it all. They take that hardship, that trauma, that unfairness, and they completely flip the script.
That hardship stops being an ankle weight holding them down. It becomes their origin story.
Yes.
It becomes the reason they're so disciplined, the reason they're relentless, the reason they refuse to stop. The pain is no longer a burden. It's the catalyst. It's the fuel.
That is just a tectonic shift in perspective. It reframes everything. It's not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing whether that reality serves as a convenient excuse or as the required fuel for massive forward movement.
And you can never, ever achieve hyperachievement if your agency, your ability to act, is dependent on external permission.
Okay, so that's the mindset. But how do you actually implement it when emotions are running high? How do you move past that, that emotional quagmire?
You need a system, a highly logical, almost cold system for confronting problems. You have to strip out the narrative, strip out the story you tell yourself, and focus purely on observable reality.
And the sources have a framework for this.
They do. It's adapted from behavioral science, and it's called logic, evidence, and utility, a 3-step system for diagnosing and fixing issues, but defined purely by behavior.
This sounds like the anti-therapy framework. It just bypasses feelings entirely to get to action. Let's walk through the steps methodically, because this is where the actionable strategy is.
Okay, so step 1, logic. You have to define the problem strictly in terms of behavior. So if someone says, I'm dealing with chronic procrastination, or even something like, I have demons that stop me from working.
That's not logical. It's a vague label. It's a story.
It's mysticism. You can't fight a demon, so you must translate that into observable, measurable actions. For example, I have failed to submit 3 out of my last 4 reports by the deadline.
Or I start showing up late to meetings after I've been at a new job for about 2 months.
It's exactly. Specific. Verifiable.
So the goal of that first step is just to remove all the emotional or abstract language and replace it with something you can actually point to. That alone probably eliminates 90% of the confusion.
It does, because if the problem isn't defined by behavior, you can't solve it through behavior.
Yeah.
If your problem is, I am depressed, the solution is vague. If the problem is, I only get out of bed at 11 a.m., the solution is immediate and tangible.
Okay, so let's say we have a logical behavior-based problem. What's next?
Step 2 is evidence. Once you have the behavior defined, you ask, how do I know this is true? Show me the data.
And this must be where a lot of these so-called problems just dissolve.
It's often the most revealing step. People believe they are chronic self-saboteurs, but when they actually look at the data from their last 3 jobs, they find the self-sabotage was maybe 3 instances over 5 years.
Or that it only happens under very specific and maybe avoidable conditions.
Right. They realize the problem isn't a statistical reality at all. It's a convenient, entrenched narrative. It's a story they tell themselves to explain a perceived weakness. They believe they're bad at sales because they lost 3 big deals.
But they totally ignore the 50 smaller deals they closed. They lack objective evidence.
Exactly. So if the evidence doesn't support the severity of the belief, the problem just kind of disappears. It's just a bad habit you need to manage.
Well, what if the evidence does support the belief? Like, you have overwhelming proof of chronic tardiness.
Then you move to the final step, which is step 3, utility. This is the so what test.
Who cares, and why does this matter?
Precisely. Why does this behavior matter to the game we are trying to win? If the behavior like showing up late does not decrease the likelihood of hitting your explicit measurable goals, like retaining your job or closing sales, then you don't need to address it immediately.
It stops being a moral failure.
And it starts being a business process failure, and only if it impacts the bottom line of your goals.
This whole framework seems designed to attack what the sources call the identity trap. We all have these limiting identities, right? I'm bad at money, I'm not a public speaker, or the source's own personal story, which I found fascinating. I was bad at math.
That story is so powerful because it reveals that identity is fundamentally a descriptive lie. People describe who you are by what you do.
They don't see your inner intentions, they just see your outputs.
That's it. And the source believed they were bad at math well into their adult life, post-college, post-consulting even. But eventually they had this realization that the identity was just a function of their behavior. They just didn't do math.
So the moment they decided to change that identity, to stop being bad at math, was simply the decision to change the behavior.
He stopped using the calculator. He did all the math problems manually, no matter how slow or how painful it was at first. He just changed the action.
It's the key insight. The decision to change your identity is nothing more than the decision to change your actions in the present. The identity will eventually catch up to the demonstrated behavior.
You can choose to define your actions in the present right now, unchained from those unchangeable past events or from those convenient self-labels.
So the first step of hyperachievement is just realizing you are not a victim of your past. You are the designer of your present actions.
That's the foundation. Everything else is built on that.
Okay, so if part one was about fixing the mind's operating system, getting that foundation right, part two is about, well, it's about pushing the physical limits of the machine.
Yeah, this is where it gets intense.
The concept here, eating the glass, is one of the most visceral metaphors in the entire source material. It's brutal.
It's a necessary brutality, though. The source uses this metaphor of life as a timeline being pulled toward you. If you just wait for that timeline to reach you naturally, it's smooth, it's sweet, it's manageable, but it is slow.
So what's hyperachievement in this metaphor?
Hyperachievement is the process of physically reaching out and pulling that timeline toward you right now.
And when you pull on it, what you encounter first isn't the sweet part. It's the painful, coarse glass.
You have to physically eat the glass today. You have to consume the pain, the effort, the necessary discomfort that would otherwise be spread out over years and years of slow progress. You're front-loading the pain.
This really illustrates the necessary trade-off, doesn't it? It requires this immense, disproportionate effort.
It does. The source puts it this way. You have to live one person's normal life. You have to eat, sleep, clean, maintain relationships, do your normal job, handle all your baseline responsibilities.
All the stuff everyone has to do.
Right, and then your real workday starts.
Wow.
Achieving world-class status means you are essentially living 3 days in one consistently. It requires a huge, sustained amount of what the source calls soul-driving energy, far outside the norm, to pull those future benefits, the smoother, sweeter parts of that timeline, into the immediate present.
And for anyone listening who thinks, I need to feel inspired first, or I need to find my passion before I can start this, the sources are brutally honest about motivation.
They really are. You do not have to wait for passion or happiness. That is a myth, a total myth, created by people selling workshops.
The initial fuel can be much darker.
It can be. It may be anger, shame, the pain of just knowing you're capable of more, or simply the desire to escape mediocrity. The intention doesn't need to be pure.
That's so critical. The point is simply to take the step, to start the inputs. It doesn't matter what the emotional purity of the intention is.
Not at all. The goal is to get the good guys ending, even if you start out motivated by negative energy, or even if you're just reverse engineering the behaviors that lead to success purely for the success itself.
But how do you sustain that drive? I mean, especially when it is pure pain, most people would just retreat when they hit that glass.
You have to leverage what you could call psychological gravity. Change happens when the pain of change is less than the pain of staying the same.
If you're comfortable, you won't move.
Never. Comfort is the greatest enemy of change.
So if the external world isn't providing enough pain, you have a decent job, a nice apartment, things are fine, you have to manufacture the pain yourself. And this is where that technique of future pacing comes in.
Exactly. Future pacing means actively generating enough current pain to drive action now by vividly, viscerally imagining the negative consequences of continued stagnation.
This isn't just positive visualization, then. Most self-help is about, seeing yourself on the beach with a drink.
No, this is the opposite. It's negative confrontation. Positive visualization is useful for cementing your goals, but it lacks the immediate propellant power of fear and shame.
So future pacing means confronting the real, hard consequences that society will inevitably impose on you if you stay mediocre.
Yes. And the source provides some potent examples. Imagine the snide comments at the holiday party in 5 years when you still haven't progressed. Or imagine the feeling of absolute financial regret when you're 60 and you realize you wasted your peak earning and learning years on distraction.
The source material is just so clear that the thought doesn't need to be pleasant or politically correct. It just needs to be painful enough and real enough to generate that required forward motion.
You're using the fear of mediocrity as a tactical weapon against your own stagnation.
Okay, that makes sense. But it leads to this strategic paradox that seems absolutely crucial.
It is perhaps the most crucial one for anyone seeking hyperachievement.
And it's this. You must be violently impatient with inputs, but incredibly patient with outputs.
Yes, you must be impatient with the actions, the repetitions, the learning loops, the sheer volume of work.
Yeah.
You have to treat every single minute of the workday as an immediate opportunity for action.
But at the same time, you have to be unbelievably patient with the results.
Incredibly patient with the outputs, the money, the finished product, the visible success. Because those things take time. Often they take years.
And this is where most people get the equation totally backward. They're patient with their inputs. Oh, I'll start next week. Or I'll take the weekend off.
Right, and then they're wildly impatient with the outputs. Why isn't my business profitable after 3 months?
And that impatience with the output is what causes them to quit.
It is. It's precisely what causes them to quit, usually just before the critical mass is achieved.
The sources model skill development as an actual function and equation.
They do. It's skill, volume repetitions, X improvement, feedback. And brute forcing the volume is the absolute first step because volume is what generates the necessary feedback for you to improve.
So let's talk about the psychological value of brute forcing that volume. The sources highlight this thing called the 12 by 30 challenge, working 12 hours a day, focused, for 30 days straight. What's the real goal of a challenge like that? Is it just the output you generate in those 30 days?
No, the output is secondary. The primary value is internal. It's the psychological realization that you're not made of glass. You realize you possess that necessary gear. You've proven to yourself behaviorally that the capability for that level of sustained effort exists within your own body and mind.
And once you know you can do 12 hours a day,
The 8-hour day becomes a minimum floor, not a ceiling. It proves you have the capacity for the inputs required to eat the glass.
and this necessity of high volume is where the concept of humiliation comes in. Take the example of becoming a top podcaster or a top creator of any kind. The data shows you have to generate a huge number of inputs. You have to upload, 21 or more episodes, write 50 blog posts.
Right. And 90% of people stop after one attempt. 99% stop before they even hit that 21 episode mark. And you have to ask, why?
It's the fear of humiliation.
It is. It's the idea that someone will judge their first terrible attempts because their first episodes will be awful. Their first designs will be amateur.
But the consequence of avoiding that short-term fear is the long-term humiliation of never amounting to anything.
Yeah.
Just sitting on the sidelines, watching everyone else play the game.
And here's the great realization, that early volume is protected by obscurity.
Nobody is watching your first 20 episodes anyway.
Nobody. You need those episodes as low-stakes reps to iterate and improve without the paralyzing fear of public judgment. You are, in effect, training in the dark.
It's all about acquiring procedural knowledge. The difference between a master salesperson and a beginner isn't some innate charm or magic.
Not at all. The master knows all the things not to say in a sale. They have walked the minefield of hundreds of failures. They have the procedural knowledge.
They acquired it through sheer volume, which lets them pivot quickly and avoid the mistakes the beginner is still making over and over.
Yes, they've optimized their input loops because they've learned what actions lead to immediate failure.
So it's the willingness to be bad publicly today in order to be great privately later. The immediate short-term pain of failure eating the glass is the fee you pay for the long-term benefit of mastery.
That's the price of admission.
Which leads us directly into how successful people structure their entire journey. And the core insight is that for the truly wealthy and successful, the primary focus isn't on maximizing today's dollar.
No, it's on acquiring skills. They think only about what they can learn and what that skill can get them in the future.
It's a form of temporal arbitrage, right?
That's a great way to put it. In the beginning, when you have high time and low money, you buy skills yourself. You pay with your time, your effort, your sweat. That's the period of eating the glass.
And then later, once those skills start to generate excess income,
you shift your leverage. You start to buy other people's time to perform necessary but non-core tasks.
but the journey, as the sources really emphasize, it isn't mapped out beforehand. It's a process of logical skill stacking, where the path is revealed through action.
Exactly. The source describes their own life trajectory. Start by learning X, get incredibly good at X, acquire measurable evidence like state powerlifting records, and then, because of X, people start asking for help with Y, which is a slightly adjacent skill.
The whole progression, from training people to owning gyms to consulting for gym owners to advising multi-million-dollar businesses, none of that was planned out in some 5-year business strategy.
Not at all. It was a logical stack of adjacent skills. Competence in one area created the opportunity and the credibility to advance to the next.
So it wasn't, I need to become a business consultant.
Yeah.
It was, I need to get incredibly good at personal training and sales.
And then the people started asking about business models, which required a consulting skill set, but it was built on that solid foundation. This proves that the skill set
And
generalizes.
critically, the sources stress that real-life skills generalize across domains exponentially.
Oh, absolutely. The ability to converse confidently, to overcome nuanced objections, to negotiate terms, to maintain high energy, that transfers to everything.
Which is why the source material so highly recommends spending 3 to 5 years in a high-volume sales environment.
Mm.
Door knocking, cold calling, high-contact, in-person business.
That environment is just pure repetition and instant, often harsh feedback. It is the fastest way to build those foundational conversational and resilient skills.
The ability to deal with 50 no's in a row without breaking your posture or your tone.
Exactly. Those skills pay dividends forever, no matter what industry you end up in. It's the constant repetition that teaches the nuance, so you no longer have to consciously think about how to structure a winning conversation.
Okay, so to achieve that skill stacking faster, the sources outline a critical and pretty painful trade-off. It's called the ignorance tax.
Mm-hmm.
And the most significant personal anecdote that supports this was the source dropping a high-status, white-collar management consulting job with its clear status, salary, path to an MBA to take a minimum wage job sweeping floors at a gym.
The ego cost there was immense. They had to endure patronizing comments, people literally asking, "Did you go to college?"
And the core question in those moments wasn't financial, it was existential. It was, I can choose to be right and defend my status and feel superior, or I can choose to be rich, which means doing the necessary work to acquire the next critical skill.
And they chose the work, which meant accepting that temporary but very painful loss of status.
But that temporary loss of status accelerated their learning. This is where the strategy of paying the ignorance tax up front comes in. How was the ignorance tax defined?
It's the price of ignorance. It's the debt, the distance between where you are today and how much you would be making if you knew how to do the thing efficiently.
So if you take 5 years to figure out a business model that someone else could teach you in 5 days,
Those 4 years and 360 days of lost income, that's the ignorance tax you paid.
and the anecdote about paying that tax with actual money is just brilliant. The source shares spending $10,000, which was a huge portion of their life savings at the time, on a gym owner's mastermind, before they even owned a gym.
They leveraged cash to compress time. They realized they could spend $10,000 to compress 5 years of potential mistakes into the present moment.
So they learned all the things those established gym owners did wrong, where to locate, how big to go, what the rent limits should be, what systems always fail.
By paying that fee, they leveraged everyone else's painful experience instantly. They effectively jumped years ahead.
That highlights the effective learning model. It's not just reading books. It's leveraging others' proven experience through constant targeted questioning.
Yes, the source describes driving out to other successful gym owners every single weekend, just asking, "Why do you do that? Why do you do that?" And then immediately going and testing the answer.
Because learning is defined as changing your behavior under the same conditions.
Exactly. The same customer walks in, but your sales script changes because you learned something new from the mastermind or from that successful owner. If you keep doing the exact same thing every day, even if you're working really hard, you are not learning.
You're just repeating.
You're just repeating. And this brings us back to that crucial distinction between declarative and procedural knowledge. We have to make sure the listener understands this difference.
Right.
Declarative knowledge is knowing about something. You can memorize the entire tax code or the inner workings of a private equity deal from a book. You can tell someone what needs to be done.
But procedural knowledge is knowing how to do it. It's the skill itself.
Yeah.
The muscle memory.
It's being able to drive the car, not just knowing where the gears are.
And the mistake most people make is they read a book, they acquire that declarative knowledge, and they confuse it for procedural skill. They think they've achieved competence when all they've done is memorize facts.
You need reps for procedural knowledge. That's why you can read all the books on cooking and still burn water, but after 50 attempts at making scrambled eggs, you'll have the procedural knowledge required to make them well, regardless of what any textbook says.
And hyperachievement prioritizes procedural knowledge above all else.
Which only comes from volume and fast feedback.
Okay, so that pursuit of procedural knowledge leads directly to the importance of achieving the first dollar. The sources note that getting that first dollar is critical.
So critical. because the second dollar and all the subsequent dollars come exponentially faster.
But the importance of that first dollar, in this context, it should be reframed. It's not a financial win.
Yep.
It's an experience point. It's proof of concept.
Yes. Level 1 was claiming agency, it's my fault. Level 2 was acting with intensity, eating the glass. This step is validating that the skill you built, the procedural knowledge, can actually exchange real value in the marketplace.
It's an external, objective validation that what you're selling isn't just a hobby. It's a valuable service.
And this contrast between the real world and the environment of school explains why so many talented, highly credentialed people struggle to transition into being entrepreneurially successful.
Because school gives you clear directions, clear outcomes, clear timelines.
And immediate grades, immediate feedback.
But the real world has vague directions, no agreed-upon rules, and severely delayed feedback. And that delay is the attrition point. That's where people quit.
That delay is what kills ambition. The Rocky cutscene in the movie, the montage of training and running and punching meat, it lasts 30 seconds.
Right.
In real life, that cutscene, that period of intense work with zero visible external results, it can last for years.
The source describes posting content for 4.5 years, getting only a few thousand downloads a month, and still feeling like a total failure compared to the overnight successes you see online.
It takes extreme patience with the output to persist when the feedback is delayed, or negative, or just non-existent.
Most people measure success using that school model. If I put in the work, I should see the grade immediately.
And the world belongs to those who can keep doing the inputs without seeing the result of their doing. That ability to delay gratification, to persist in the face of silence, is essentially an index of intelligence and commitment.
The longer you can wait while continuing to ruthlessly execute the inputs,
the bigger you win when the compound effect finally hits.
All right, so as we transition into this next part, which is about eliminating resistance, we have to start with the physical, the operating chassis of the hyperachiever.
Yeah, and the sources frequently reference Charlie Munger's philosophy. The fastest way to get ahead is to avoid stupidity, rather than seeking intelligence.
And the stupidities are often mundane, easy to identify, but incredibly difficult to change. For example, just going to bed on time.
That single behavior, setting an alarm to go to sleep, not just to wake up. It eliminates a whole cascade of things that derail young people.
It prevents late-night drinking,
which costs you 2 full days, the day you drink and the day you recover. It prevents poor late-night food choices. It prevents the loss of mental bandwidth the entire following day. It is the single highest leverage anti-stupidity habit available.
And that single behavior, that discipline over your body, it translates to a generalized competitive advantage. The sources argue that across any random sample of physical and mental tasks, in-shape individuals will outperform overweight individuals.
Simply because they have measurably higher sustained energy, better focus, and a greater discipline that transfers across all domains.
And then there's the uncomfortable social advantage we have to acknowledge.
Right. Being disciplined enough to be in shape often means you are perceived as better looking because you possess vitality and control. And studies confirm this.
It translates directly to higher pay and promotion rates. It affects every way people see you and how they project competence onto you.
And this brings us to that Muhammad Ali quote, which just summarizes this whole section perfectly.
What's the quote?
The central part of training is dodging the nightclubs and the parties and the girls and being in the bed by yourself 9:00 at night.
It's a direct, measurable trade-off of short-term pleasure and social acceptance for long-term physical and mental capacity.
Every single time you say no to the party, you are reinvesting that time and that energy into your future self.
Speaking of maintaining capacity and tone, the sources have this highly actionable, almost ridiculous hack, the small trampoline.
Yeah, bouncing between high-stakes activities like sales calls.
What is the mechanism there? What's it doing?
It's the proactive physical management of your emotional state, the physical activity, even just 10 bounces.
Yeah.
It forces a momentary change in your blood chemistry, your heart rate, your focus. It is mentally impossible to stay in a bad mood while you're bouncing.
I believe it.
Even if you just had a terrible call moments before.
So it's a physical reset button. It maintains your energy, your blood flow, your positive tone, and it gives you a wider margin for error in the next high-pressure interaction.
Exactly. If you start a sales call neutral or slightly negative from the last failure, you have no room to mess up. But if you start high energy and positive, you can pivot easily when objections arise. You can absorb a negative comment without letting it derail your performance.
It's a simple input to manage your state.
And your state is the ultimate input for high-volume execution.
Okay, so from physical inputs to mental ones, the next crucial step is ruthlessly eliminating distraction.
And this gets into the core economics of time and money, a universal truth. Rich people buy time, poor people buy stuff.
And ambitious people buy skills.
Lazy people buy distraction.
That is a powerful equation. Distraction is framed not as some harmless side activity, but as an active financial and strategic choice that guarantees long-term mediocrity.
Entertainment, motivation porn, going out every minute and every dollar you spend on distraction is a minute and a dollar you did not invest in a skill or in an output.
Let's make this practical and uncomfortable, because the sources do. They're blunt. If you have less than $100,000 in savings, you have to check your ego at the door.
What that means is no eating out, only discount groceries, absolute financial discipline, unless you already have the high-level skills necessary to generate excess income effortlessly.
Anything that is not an action required to get what you want is a distraction from it, period.
And this applies to every stream of media you consume, every social activity you attend, every luxury you purchase.
Then there's the issue of social distraction, which is often the most destructive of all. Your reference group.
Your reference group, the 5 people you compare yourself to, is the single highest predictor of your future goals and achievements.
If your reference group values comfort, stability, and work-life balance defined by the 40-hour week,
your ambition will naturally gravitate toward that center. The gravitational pull of that group is often stronger than your personal desire for achievement.
and so the necessary, painful sacrifice is realizing that sometimes you have to like your goals more than you like your current friends.
And this means you have to enter what the sources call the lonely chapter.
The lonely chapter.
It's this transitional period where you're actively eating the glass, you're working 12 hours a day, and because of that, you don't fit in with your old group anymore. They're going to be partying when you're working.
But you don't yet have the achievements or the network to fit in with the new, higher-level group you aspire to join. You're just between worlds.
That has to be the highest attrition period for ambition.
It is. The old group provides comfort, acceptance, familiarity. They will naturally try to pull you back down to their level, often criticizing your efforts as working too hard or missing out on life.
And that is the ultimate test of your resolve. You have to resist that urge to conform back to comfort. The sources use a powerful analogy from the Matrix to describe this moment of decision.
It's the moment Trinity opens the car door for Neo.
That's it. The past comfort, the life you're leaving behind, that's the dead-end road. Trinity says, "You've been down that road, Neo. You know exactly where it ends."
Going back to comfort is the dead end.
You have to accept the temporary loneliness, the criticism, the isolation, to take the red pill and proceed toward the life you actually want.
You have to determine whose opinion you're even listening to. If you look at the lives of the people who are criticizing your effort, the people telling you that you work too hard and you don't want what they have,
Then you must disregard what they say.
yeah.
Your biggest risk is not your competition. It's the distraction and the comfort that you insist on keeping in your life, which is often reinforced by a reference group that is just protecting its own stagnation.
And this leads us to the final, unavoidable truth of this section. We have to confront the reality of exceptionalism. We all aspire to excellence, but we rarely accept the cost it requires.
Yeah, mediocrity, by its very definition, is balance. It's the medium, the average.
Yeah.
Exceptional people are, by definition, imbalanced.
They are disproportionately focused on one primary domain, their skill, their business, their craft, which means they're necessarily neglecting other areas of their life.
At least for a sustained, necessary period of time, you cannot achieve disproportionate results while maintaining proportional effort across all areas of your life. It's impossible.
And this imbalance is the contrarian price tag that you have to pay for success. The source lists them clearly, and they are brutal.
Privacy is the price of fame. Loneliness is the price of ambition.
And the most painful one, pleasure is the price of discipline.
That's the one. If you want the immense benefits of discipline and consistency, you must trade the pleasure in the moment, the party, the instant gratification, the lazy afternoon.
If you want ambition, you have to accept being lonely and being the exception among your peers. You can't haggle over the price for the shoes. You either pay it or you don't wear them.
And this leads to the deepest, most uncomfortable truth about close relationships. We assume our loved ones want the best for us.
Right.
But the source notes that people closest to you often want the version of you who best serves them, not necessarily the best possible version of you.
That is a harsh, harsh assessment.
Mhm.
How do you distinguish between genuine support and just self-serving comfort?
Well, your success, your massive change can sometimes make them feel bad about their own life choices or the risks they chose not to take. They may genuinely fear losing the old, comfortable version of you.
So what's the test?
The litmus test is simple and it's unforgiving. The only people whose opinions matter are those whose dreams for you are measurably bigger than your own. If they try to pull you back into conformity, they are not serving your ambition.
That's a brutal but necessary way to ensure your environment is actively forcing you to grow rather than just accepting you exactly as you are.
It has to be.
Okay, let's turn the corner now and discuss maximizing output through focus. Focus is often treated as this vague internal state, but the sources define it operationally.
They do. And the definition is, focus is measured by the amount of things you say no to.
This requires ruthlessly eliminating waste and focusing all your effort onto one single thing. The sources use this compelling ladder analogy.
Right. Imagine you need to get over a wall that is 100 feet high. Don't start 4 separate ladders, each with 25 rungs built.
Because none of them will get you over the wall.
None of them. Take the time and energy from those 3 other ventures and stack them all onto one ladder to get over the wall. Any of the 4 ladders might have worked, but none of them will work unless you stack the effort onto one.
And stacking that effort, that focus, is so critical because the hyperachiever has to play the infinite game. We need to clearly define the difference between the finite and the infinite frame here.
It's a clear distinction. Finite games have known players, agreed-upon rules, and a clear defined way to win or lose.
Like a project or a quarter sales goal or a single contract negotiation.
Exactly. Once the goal is hit, the game is over.
But life and business are not finite games.
Not at all. They are infinite games. They have known and unknown players, no agreed rules, and the sole point of the game is to keep the game going.
This applies to marriage, health, business, the journey of personal development.
Everything important. And if you treat your business as a finite game focused only on the quarterly exit, you risk losing the ability to keep playing in the long term.
So if life and business are infinite games, you have to fundamentally shift how you define the win.
You do. If you define the win as an external output, like the billion-dollar exit or the specific revenue target, you risk losing the game when that milestone is inevitably hit, or more commonly, when it's missed.
So the real win must be internal.
The real win must be the contribution to your character. The internal metric has to be, did I or did I not contribute to the character of the person I want to become today?
Did I execute the required inputs?
Yeah.
Did I honor my commitments? Did I eliminate the distractions?
Yes. And if character is the win, you can never truly lose. You win every single day by doing what is required, regardless of how you feel about it, and regardless of the immediate external feedback.
The one asset you get to keep for the rest of your life is you, your skills, and your character.
And those are built day by day in the infinite game.
Okay, so moving from character to product, the ultimate form of long-term leverage isn't marketing.
No, it's quality. This is the lesson from zeroing in on product quality and making something so exceptional becomes too good to fail.
The anecdote here about the first book, $100 Hours, is astonishing because it just defied all conventional marketing wisdom.
It did. It was intended as an internal foundational document for the entrepreneur's existing coaching clients. And because it was built to serve that single internal purpose at an absolutely exceptional level,
When they released it publicly, it sold out instantly.
with zero paid marketing, it continued to sell more copies month after month for 2 years, relying purely on word of mouth.
The leverage there is just astronomical. While building great marketing gets you one sale, delivering an exceptional product and reputation gets you every subsequent sale from everyone who hears about it.
Your customers become your marketing department, and it's free.
And this is why the pursuit of quality is so essential, even when it seems excessive. The difference between an 8 and a 9 out of 10 in quality.
Is often 10 times the work, and the difference between a 9 and a 9.5 is another 10 times the work.
But that small quality gap, that final push toward excellence, is what unlocks that massive, effortless, self-sustaining leverage.
Absolutely, and that obsession with quality and volume is directly tied to the obsession with what the source calls microspeed, pulling the future into the present through sheer execution pace.
Right, questioning timelines aggressively.
If a college course requires 10 problem sets due next week, and each one takes 30 minutes, the average student paces themselves to do one a day.
The hyperachiever asks, why wait?
Why wait? Do all 10 sets in a single day. You can cram an entire year's worth of work and learning into a week if you just compress the execution timeline.
That speed, that micro-level impatience with inputs, that's how highly successful people drag the future to the present.
They acquire skills faster, they get to the procedural knowledge phase quicker,
Yeah.
and they compound their experience at a rate that standard pacing just cannot match.
Let's conclude with the ultimate lesson then. The one that ties the foundational mindset of ownership with the practical application of skill stacking. Resourcefulness.
And the story of the surgeon father is the perfect encapsulation of this entire deep dive.
Tell us.
The father, a surgeon, committed years of focused effort where there was seemingly no net gain in progress toward his medical career. But years later, nobody asks how long it took. They only see what he can do.
So when he decided to open his own practice, he needed a surgical center.
Right. And instead of paying a third party $250,000 to build it, he took on the responsibility himself.
He became a general contractor.
The surgeon, a highly specialized professional, was out at Home Depot measuring lumber, paying that ignorance tax with his own time and effort to acquire the necessary procedural knowledge to build the facility for a fraction of the cost.
That is the definitive distinction between a resource-dependent mindset and a resourceful mindset.
It is. Success is not about the resources you have. It's about how resourceful you are willing to be, how willing you are to pay down that ignorance tax with your own time and effort, rather than just accepting the status quo.
And the key takeaway here is that after the first attempt, you never, ever start from scratch again.
You always start with experience. Every failure is a learning opportunity. It's a data point in the infinite game that compounds into the next attempt, making the next attempt inevitably better and faster.
So the actionable framework, the ultimate distillation of all of these lessons, is what?
It's this. Figure out with logical clarity what you want. Then ignore the opinions of others, especially those who lack the results you desire because they only serve to distract you. And finally, do so much volume, execute with such speed, focus, and dedication that it would be entirely unreasonable for you to not be successful.
You control the inputs.
And the inputs control the outputs. It's that simple.
This deep dive has been a relentless, powerful look at the mechanics of massive success. It revealed that high achievement is less about innate talent and more about a deliberate act of choosing discomfort, of eliminating distraction, and focusing on volume and skill acquisition over instantaneous reward. It is a necessary process of consciously and ruthlessly building yourself by accepting the steep, necessary price tag.
And you have to remember the paradox at the heart of this entire journey. The pain you willingly go through in the moment, the struggles, the long hours, the loneliness, the humiliation of early failure, that often becomes the very purpose you look back on in your life.
That difficulty becomes the path you stand proudly upon.
It does. The biggest risk to your future isn't your competition or your rivals. It's the simple, comfortable distraction that you insist on keeping in your life.
So here is the provocative thought for you, the listener, to mull over. The sources suggest that you have to kill your current, conforming, comfortable self for your new, successful self to have the room to grow. So the question is, what is the one thing, that single comfortable distraction, habit, or limiting belief that you know you need to stop doing today that will make your future self proud of the struggle? What glass will you eat this week?